From WBAY TV, Jeff Alexander and Sarah Thompson, this is Action 2 News at 4, your first alert station.
We are officially 360 days out from the 2020 presidential election.
Many national pundits are pointing at Wisconsin as one of the most important battleground states this time around.
The Full Court Press host Greta Van Susteren joins us from our D.C. bureau live to talk about Wisconsin's role in the presidential race. Greta, the president, is the only statewide race on the ballot here in Wisconsin next year. Is that going to benefit parties looking to court more voters, or is that going to hurt?
Look at her, Hillary Clinton, in 2016 when she didn't bother to show the courtesy to us cheeseheads and show up in Wisconsin. I mean, she paid for it because Donald Trump only won by about 20,000 votes in Wisconsin. Everyone seems to think, and maybe I'm a braggart, but I think Wisconsin's going to be the most important state in this 2020, and so I think you're going to see a lot of visiting by Democratic candidates and by the president himself. So Wisconsin's going to be key.
A recent Washington Post article cited many who said Wisconsin voters are more focused on issues than party affiliation. Is that also difficult for the campaigns?
Well, I hope not, because I think the issues are the most important thing. I mean, healthcare, of course, is an important issue across the country, but in particular, it's in Wisconsin. I mean, I read the Wisconsin papers and I see what the people of Wisconsin, are paying attention to. But healthcare is universal, and it's not enough just to say I'm going to do such and such, or I want this plan. Those candidates have to come to Wisconsin and convince Wisconsin voters, whether Republican or Democrat, that they can actually implement the plans, that they can actually get a divided Congress. I mean, the Congress is right now a Democratic House and a Republican Senate, and you may have the greatest program in the world or the greatest ideas in the world, but if you can't get those two houses to talk to each other, the House and the Senate, if you can't get them to talk to each other, you're not going to get any of your plans passed. So one of the most important things I think that the candidates, and Mayor Pete as well, who I interviewed for Full Court Press this week, and has to answer is, what makes you different? What makes you think you can get your plans actually passed in Washington so the American people can take advantage of them?
It sort of leads to our next question. A recent New York Times poll shows Democrats in states like here in Wisconsin want moderate candidates over the progressives. Does that give an advantage to people like Joe Biden or to others like Bernie Sanders?
Well, Madison will probably go for Bernie Sanders. The rest of the state in the Democratic Party will probably want someone more moderate. I mean, you've got Amy Klobuchar, senator from Minnesota, right next door. And, we do allow people from Minnesota once in a while to wander into our state, not too often in Wisconsin. But all teasing aside is that, look, Wisconsin's had fascinating politics forever. It is so fascinating, but I would not be surprised if after the last 4 or 8 years is that the voters in Wisconsin, whether Republican or Democrat, might want a more moderate candidate, which actually brings me to Mayor Bloomberg, who is jumping into the race, and he is a more moderate Democrat. So you've got moderate Republicans like Klobuchar, Mayor Pete, and then you've got the extremes. And in the Democratic Party, of course, that would be Warren and Bernie Sanders.
Can he make Bloomberg now? Can he make a definite impact this late in the race, if he will?
Well, regrettably, one of the most important things in these races is money, and he has an unlimited amount. I mean, you have interesting candidates like Tulsi Gabbard, Congresswoman from Hawaii. She's having trouble because she can't raise the money. She's an interesting candidate, whether you're for or not. I mean, you want to hear from her, or she ought to have an opportunity to be heard, but she doesn't have the money that someone like a candidate Bloomberg has. I mean, he comes into it with wind behind his sails. He's in really good shape in order to make himself known. Of course, people do pretty much know him now, but having money is everything in politics.
And this week you have Mayor Pete Buttigieg on Full Court Press. He was the 4th among Democratic candidates in the most recent Marquette Law School poll. What can viewers expect to hear?
Well, I look at candidates to find out. I look, what have you been doing? And he's been a mayor in South Bend. So I think, okay, you now want to be president of the United States. So I want to know, how is South Bend doing? Because if South Bend is doing really well, that would bode well for him on a national level. If South Bend is not, then of course, why in the world is he running for president? And we went back and forth a little bit because he said that South Bend is a success. And I asked him about the fact that it has a 26% poverty level, which is rather high. And he explained why he thought it was such a high poverty level. But he's also got racial problems inside South Bend. A lot of African Americans don't like him because there was a shooting of a white police officer of a black man last summer. And when he went back to answer it, he left the campaign trail to go back and answer it. There were African Americans in the rooms shouting, "We don't trust you, we don't trust you, we don't trust you." That's a problem for him, especially since the second primary, third race, is South Carolina, and that's a heavy African American state. And he needs to win not just Iowa, where he's doing well now, or New Hampshire, where we expect Elizabeth Warren or Senator Bernie Sanders to win, but he's got to win in South Carolina. So he needs to convince the African American vote that that he is the candidate, he is their choice.
All right, Greta, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Be sure to catch Greta every Sunday right here on WBAY TV2 at 10:30 in the morning.